2021. It's 6 p.m. Good evening, and on behalf of the City of Independence, we welcome you to this virtual Planning Commission meeting. For the convenience of those participating in tonight's meeting, I'd like to remind all of you in attendance, both commissioners and the public, to please mute yourself when you're not speaking to prevent distraction and unwanted disruptions. Staff will be enforcing this and monitoring those in attendance for questions during public hearings. During the public hearing portion of the meeting, staff will call on those who have requested to speak in the order that you signed up. Following that, anyone else who wishes to speak will be recognized. For those who wish to speak tonight, please remember to address all comments to the chair. Keep your comments brief and on point. If you agree with the previous comment, simply indicate that you agree. To expedite tonight's meeting, I'll ask those of you who wish to testify or believe that you might like to testify to please be sworn in. So if those of you who are here to testify, if it's possible, please turn your cameras on so that we can see you. If not, please unmute so that we can hear you audibly say, "I do." I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, those who wishing to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, "I do."
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. All right. Before we get formally started, there's been a request to move case number 3, which is a UDO amendment, to following case number 5, which is a short-term rental. So if we can move case number 3 to behind number 5, that will be probably the most considerate thing we can do for the other cases above it, since it is a city case and they have to stay on till the end anyway. So if we have a motion, if commissioners agree, I would like a motion to do that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
I move that we take case number 21-175-08 and move it from item number 3 on the agenda to after item number 5 on the agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Commissioner Ferguson seconded. All right, City will take roll call on this one real quick.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle.
No.
Absent tonight.
Oh. Okay. Commissioner Nesbitt.
Yes.
Commissioner Preston.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
And Chairman McLean.
Yes. So case number 3, 21-175-08 UDO amendment number 52 has been moved in our agenda to in place of number, or after number 5. Okay. Also, before we do that, I'll let City do roll call just to make sure, again, who all is here, please. Sorry.
So Commissioner Ferguson.
Here.
So Commissioner Nesbitt.
Here.
Commissioner Preston. Commissioner Preston.
Here.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
And Chairman McLean.
Yes. So the ones we're missing are Paul Michelle and Heather Wiley.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Our first case for tonight is a continued case, 21-840-01, Administrative Adjustment Appeal, 17608 East Crackerneck Road. Staff, would you give a report?
Okay, so this was about an appeal concerning an administrative decision on facade treatment required for commercial buildings in a C2 district. And you had continued this case and there was the statement and intention that maybe that staff and the applicant would get together and work out a remedy. We got information from the applicant today that, or the applicant's counsel today, that they intend to push forward with the original request and are not didn't give us any kind of anything to review post meeting last time. So I think the thing we probably should do is let the applicant speak as to their intentions at this time.
Okay.
Just to reiterate that the city's position has not changed as far as the original administrative decision.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly before we continue, I wanted to acknowledge that Jennifer Baird is on. Can you wave? The city attorney for representing the city as an attorney for tonight. I wanted to speak to you directly. We appreciated so much your partner's activity on our last meeting. So if you see that there's a point we need to be making, please interject and interrupt us. We don't mind at all. We would much rather hear from you and get it right than guess. So
Absolutely. Not afraid to do that. So that's
Thank
why I'm here.
thank you and welcome. Okay, so let's proceed. I believe, John, you're going to speak.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I've sworn myself in, and I would like to address the staff. If I sent them today some positions that my client had, I emailed those. Did you get those, Brian?
Yes, and we thought we'd let you
Did
elaborate.
you forward them? Okay. Did you forward them to the commissioners by any chance?
No, they have not been
Okay,
able to.
well, then I will address them. I sent a response to Brian, who's been doing a very good job for the city. And I made some points in my email. And my first point is any exterior modification of the surface of the building, I believe would not enhance the appearance of the building. I've observed the building. I'm sure the commissioners have observed it at least through some sort of picture supplied them. And the building is not an unattractive building. And my client paid the contractor an extra amount to make the design vertical and more aesthetically pleasing than what was originally proposed for the building. In addition, around the building is a considerable amount of screening that trees, pine trees, bushes, a lot of things that screens the building, that therefore there's always a small portion of the front of the building that's exposed to the street, or at least forward towards the property. And then I also wanted to point out that I think I mentioned this last time, this is not a traditional C2 commercial property that you'd see along Nolan Road or 40 or 24 in some commercial setting. This is one that's used for this business and is not necessarily fronting a main arterial road, which may be the reason that the staff has a code that wants certain facades that would want to make a building appear aesthetically pleasing for a commercial property like a restaurant or convenience store or any other type of commercial enterprise. So my client's position is they have a building, it has a facade that is very aesthetically pleasing. I don't believe, Brian, I haven't inquired, but I don't believe there's any neighborhood comment on this. You sent out a letter to 185 feet radius, and I don't know what feedback you got on that. I'm sure if it was negative, you would have brought it up, but there has not been any response, Brian.
Actually, I have gotten phone calls from, well, one phone call from a person in the adjacent condominium complex.
Okay. But my client has been a good neighbor there since 1970. And so my client's position is they do have a building that fits into the use of the property and is not a visual obstruction in any manner or form to the surrounding properties. And that's my client's position.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question to staff, point of clarification. Why does this building not meet code?
The issue is the facade material does not meet the design requirements for non-residential buildings in a commercial district, particularly that it uses exposed metal.
My understanding is that some amount of, whether it be like stone or veneer stone or stucco or something like that is what's asked. That's what we ask. Go ahead.
Basically, natural materials and masonry, hardy board, things like that are what's called out specifically in the ordinance.
Was there a question to the applicant? Help me to understand why you think that this building meets code.
What meets code? I'm saying that it meets the code. The goal of the code is to have an aesthetically pleasing building, and it's simply there, right there in front of you in that picture. I think I've also forwarded to the staff another building in town that has no facade on it, and it was evidently accepted by the city over on Hokie Road. Now, I know that the city can be selective, but I think that this is not a visual obstruction or offensive building. My client made a call to the city originally to try to get guidance, and I think in the last meeting, it was implied that maybe he didn't, but he has brought the phone records with him to show that he made these calls. So if there's some challenge of the veracity and honesty of my client, he's willing to submit the documents of his phone calls, but I don't think that's necessarily the focus of this meeting tonight. This building sits behind a J.C. Penney store. They look out on the back of an empty J.C. Penney store. So I think it complies with the intent of the ordinance.
John Butch Nesbitt here. Did you guys get a permit before putting that building up?
Who's speaking?
Butch Nesbitt.
Since you weren't at the last meeting, Butch, I'll go over it. My client made repeated calls to the city, but they weren't at the city hall. They had abandoned their post.
That's not what I asked. I asked, did you guys get a permit before putting the building up?
We made an effort, a good faith effort to get a permit, and we did not get it because of the city was absent in their duties. You got your answer?
Well, my question is, how long ago did you guys apply for the permit?
Well, do you know the answer to that question, Butch?
I do not. That's why I'm asking you.
Okay. When the city said that they needed a permit, they went up and and applied for a permit.
And when was that?
When was that? Do you know? It was after the building was built.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, because that's what that building's been there for 2 years, I think, Matt, because I drive by it all the time. So I'm just curious if they got a permit before they did. That's all I was asking. Thank you,
No,
John.
look,
Okay.
the building was put up in February
But it was put up in February.
2021.
That's how well it blends into the landscape. You don't even hardly know it's there.
Well, I know it's there because I see it, but that's okay.
Madam Chair.
The building was built actually.
This is identify yourself to speak. This is Josh.
This is Joshua Keller.
Address.
My address is 121 Northeast Parks View Court, Lee Summit, Missouri, 64064.
Thank you.
The building was actually erected on March 18th and 19th of 2021. Prior to that, we had a smaller building that set out closer to the road. That was really more of a temporary structure. So due to lack of security with that building, we took it down and chose this route.
Okay. So again, the permit came after the building. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, question back to staff.
Yes.
The council presented that there's a building on Hokie Road that is similar to the building, the subject building. What is staff's comment to that, and how similar or dissimilar?
Well, first of all, that building on Holkey Road, there near M7 or M78, that we found a picture. It appeared that it was constructed about the fall of 2007, which would have been almost, well, about a year and a half before the UDO was approved. So the current requirements of code did not apply to that building.
Thank you. These are great questions.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from commissioners before we see if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm no longer the newest member, which is great. So welcome aboard, Butch. But I do kind of have a new guy sort of question. So because this case came forward with our last meeting and it was continued, how much of what was stated in the last meeting can we bring up here? Because I think with the applicants, some of the things that have been mentioned by the applicant aren't being mentioned again, such as I believe in our last meeting it was mentioned that the building wasn't even close to the road, and there was more mention of the communication that didn't take place between the applicant and the city that isn't kind of being mentioned again. And if there are records, like I kind of would frankly like to see the attempted communication between the applicant and the city. I would be pretty interested in that. And also, I mean, frankly, with, as it says in the background, that this building was built without the proper permits and was even given a stop work order, and it continued. So I think since our last meeting, I've been kind of curious to see what happens to this building if the applicant doesn't get their wishes. What happens to it? Does it just, will it still be functioning? Will it still be used by the owner? I'm kind of curious of what happens with buildings like this that are built without the proper permits and the proper applications and being done through the proper channels. So I think that's it.
Diddy, would you like to respond to that? I would just remind all of us that the question and the motion at hand is basically, did the city director make the correct decision to do the stop order? So that's kind of what we're talking about. I think anything you would want to ask commissioners, Commissioner Bryce,
We've never been given a stop order.
that we discussed.
No, that actually wasn't what the director was.
Not the
Yeah,
stop order, I'm sorry.
The question you're examining is their appeal of his administrative decision about the enforcement of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, thank you. So I think anything that you would like a refresher on from the last meeting is appropriate. Are there any other questions of the applicant or the city before we?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
this is John Carn for the applicant. Josh would like to address the commission, if he may. Maybe he could clarify some of these questions on whether there was a stop order and things of that nature, and when the building was constructed.
All right.
May he address the commission?
Yes, please.
Spin it so they can see Josh.
We were never issued a stop order. I would like to make that very clear.
That was my mistake. I'm so sorry.
Okay. But what I would like to say, if I could take a minute, since 1970, our family has locally owned and operated Keller's Turf and Shrub Care Incorporated at its current location. I don't think it's necessary to expand on the economic benefits we have brought to our local community in the last 51 years. In regards to the specific question at hand, do we or do we not meet the applied unified development ordinance in question by the city staff? The UDO has a goal of uniformity for commercialized areas of new development. As stated earlier, we are not a new development. We are an existing business that has been in place prior to the current zoning laws. In fact, the city has previously rezoned us from our current zoning. We have been in existence at this location prior to all development currently surrounding our property. Through the years, we have been asked to surrender our property entirely by commercial developers, simply vacate and leave town by one former city staff member, and to donate a half-acre portion of our property by city planners, which my father willingly did so. I offer this to you. We set back from 39th Street 1,412 feet. We are a third-tier placement surrounded primarily by multifamily residential. We're fully screened and exceed the minimum requirements with mature cedars, pines, and oak trees that are in healthy condition, unlike most of the commercial property surrounding us. Our landscape screening is within 50 feet of the Bulger Road frontage, while the structure in question sits back 120 feet. Our business is a service-based company. We do not promote retail sales or customer walk-ins. Our crews leave in the morning and return at the end of the workday. It is imperative our assets, our trucks, trailers, and equipment remain in good working order on a daily basis, free from theft and vandalism. Security fences, video surveillance, and security systems all fall short at some point in time. Storing our assets inside of a secured building has unfortunately become our only option. This structure was designed to meet our needs, both short-term and long-term. It is a structure we can afford to purchase, properly maintain, and stay in business for years to come. We are in the business of making properties look their best. Why would we have something that makes our own property look poorly? I would in fact compare our situation to the new Menards location. Their secondary building for secured storage of lumber is constructed similar fashion and appearance to ours. I will continue to operate my business how I see fit to the needs to be operated, continue supporting the well-being of those employed by the business. I will continue to roll forward. I am not, nor was I ever in a position to wait on pandemic circumstances or lack of communication. Our customers have high expectations, and I intend on delivering those commitments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn to, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for this case? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this case? Hearing none, the public portion of this case is closed. Commissioners, questions, answers?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
I listened to the applicant, and I'm certainly sympathetic to any and all businesses. And yet this commission heard cases throughout the pandemic, which means other businesses made application. I'm hard pressed to think that for whatever reason, city staff was totally unavailable or totally non-responsive to this particular applicant. Simple comment, and if there are no further comments, I'll make a motion.
Commissioners, any other thoughts or comments?
No.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion, and remember the motion has to be made in the affirmative.
Indeed, Madam Chair.
Yes.
In this application at case number 21-4840-01, an appeal to administrative adjustment decision to non-residential design requirements, I move that application be affirmed.
Okay, and just as clarification, because this is a little bit of a confusing one, just to make sure that all of us as commissioners understand and have a chance to ask for further clarification. But a yes vote to this motion agrees that the director made the right decision, or that a yes vote to this motion agrees that the director's decision was in error. A no vote is that you believe the director made a correct decision. Is that correct, Counselor?
That is correct.
Okay. Was that any help, or is that more confusing? Does it make sense to commissioners before we take this vote?
Well, we get a second, Madam Chair.
And then, yes, when we need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Nesbitt. Okay, if there's no questions and we're all feel good, then City, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Ferguson, Commissioner Ferguson,
No.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
No.
Commissioner Young,
No.
and Chairman McLean.
No. The case number 21-840-01, appeal to administrative adjustment, has failed. Council, as you know, you are welcome to appeal this decision to the City Council.
Most certainly.
Thank you. Okay, next case It's case 21-200-06, special use permit. Julio Palomino requests approval for a vehicle dealership at 908 North Atherton. So city, if you will give us a report, please.
Okay, Julio Palomino requests approval for a vehicle dealership at 908 North Atherton. The site is on the west side of North Atherton, just north of US 24 highway, as you can see from the location map. This is the zoning for the area. There's industrial zoning property just to the east, which is that sort of a purplish color. C2 to the north and south of the site, and C1 to the west. That being that sort of pinkish property to the west. The yellow zoning to the north and the west is part of the Winterstone Golf Course property. This is the comprehensive plan for the area. It shows that the property is designated as for commercial, community commercial, and residential uses. Okay, this is the aerial site plan. Shows basically the entire property where with the applicant's building, addressed as 908, in the middle of the photo with North Atherton on the right. The proposed vehicle display area is just south of the building. The customer employee parking is to the north and the west sides of the building. To the northeast of the building at 910 is a small restaurant. Okay, this is the picture of the applicant's building taken from North Atherton. The vehicle display area is proposed directly in front of the building. Here's a picture that's looking directly north from the adjoining property at the front of the building. And those spaces on the left where those cars are parked as part of his business operations will be used for the used car display area. This is, we're looking to the northeast at the side of the building with the parking shown, and also which would be future vehicle display areas. And this is the back of the building. You can also see from this photograph, there's two garage doors on the back and area for cars to be parked on the back of the building and also along the west side of the building. This building, which is 908 and a half, is at the rear of the property, just to the west of the applicant's building. It's been used for auto-related uses in the past, but it's now vacant. And this is the looking west from North Atherton. This is the small restaurant on the front of the property. The applicant's building is visible to the left, sort of right behind that pickup truck. This is the property that's immediately north of this, the entire lot that the applicant's building sits on. This is a daycare business, been there many years. This is the property to the east across Atherton Road. It is owned industrial, but it is in office use right now. This is a small gas station at the northeast corner of US 24 and North Atherton. And these next two photographs are restaurants that are just south of the applicant's property. This one and this one. Staff does recommend approval of this application with the following conditions. One is due to the limited size of the business area, the number of vehicles for sale on site is limited to 7. Number 2 is the parking and vehicle storage area surrounding the building must be resealed and restriped to prevent groundwater contamination from parked vehicles. One of the spaces must be designated as an ADA space with the proper marking and signage, and then all improvements to be completed prior to the city business license being approved for the vehicle sales business. As you know, the applicant currently runs a car detailing shop there. He details cars for dealerships in the area and also for personal, not personal, but other regular customers. And I believe that he is, someone is on the line for him. Mr. Palomino, are you there? Mr. Palomino, or someone for Mr. Palomino? I sent the information to him today, and he responded that he would be on the line. So I'm thinking that he's here.
I think he's muted.
Yeah, Mr. Palomino, can you turn on your microphone, please?
Yes, I hear.
Yes, go ahead.
Great, thank you. Please state your name and address.
My name is Julio Palomino. My address is 908 Atherton Road, Independence, Missouri, 50556.
Is that your home address or the business address?
The business address.
If you can give us your home address, that would be helpful.
2000 Concord Road, Independence, Missouri.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, tell us anything you would like us to know about this project.
Well, I want to sell a few cars in there and follow with the rule with how you say that? Fix the parking lot and keep it on the business.
I'm
Okay.
here. My name is Todd Rectorman, and Julio has a hard time. He's extremely nervous right now. I would be happy to talk for him, and he can also elaborate. Is that
would be-
acceptable?
And don't be nervous. We're all here. We're for you. We're here to listen for you. So please don't be nervous. But yes, and if you would mind state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Todd Rectorman, and I'm 1615 North State Route 7 Highway, Independence.
Thank you. Yes, that would be great.
Julio is a previous employee of mine for 10 years at Cars Plus Credit, actually almost 11 years. He came from a car dealership. He's been in the automobile industry for a long time as a detailer. The whole process. He's sold cars. He's cleaned our cars. He's opened his own lot now. He took a facility there at that new location, which was dilapidated, and turned it into a nice little detail shop. He works for a lot of car dealers. I think the opportunity there for him is, he's not going to have a lot of cars, but he might as well be making more money while he's doing it. I'm willing to help him on any level of compliance. We've been good friends and co-workers for many years. I'm extremely proud of this guy. He's done a lot. He owns a home with his son over on Concord. They just purchased that, 2 or 3 years ago? 3 years ago. So we've got a good young man here that is doing what he's supposed to do. Good family man, good employee, and fantastic business owner. And that's what I've got for him this evening.
Thank you. Commissioners, you have questions of the applicant?
Madam Chair, a question of staff.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Not that there's a moratorium on the number of used car lots in the city of Independence, but as a matter of record, how many used car lots do we have in Independence?
Well, according to our business licensing data, we have 55 used car lots. That includes used car lots that are associated with new car sales, and also used car lots that are associated with auto repair businesses and that sort of thing. So 55 is the number.
The next part of that question is, what has been the historical use of this particular property?
Well, the building that he's been in, or is in now, I believe, has been used for some sort of auto business of some sort for years. I really don't know that particular background of this property, but something like that for years.
As best you can discern, has there been a used car lot at this property previously?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Final question in this. What are the other potential uses of this property other than a used car lot?
Well, he's currently running a car detailing shop out of there. He could do other auto-related uses such as, auto glass replacement, minor tune-ups, tire sales. And then if you get away from the automotive side of it, you could use it for an office, for an insurance office or a hair salon, or, something along those lines, whatever's permissible in a normal C2 zoning district.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I was going to ask the exact question of how many used car lots are in Independence, but Commissioner Preston beat me to that. So instead, I will take this time to just say that the friendship and relationship that Mr. Palomino has is incredible, and I greatly appreciate. And it must be a great feeling for Mr. Palomino to have somebody that has his back like that, especially in regards to a business. So I applaud that. Thank you.
I agree. I think that speaks volumes. Mr. Palomino, I had just wanted to make sure that you're aware, obviously, of the recommendations from the city, that you can only have 7 cars parked and the striping has to be done. Are you okay with all of those recommendations?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy, is that wrote down in our planning staff, the recommendations from the city someplace?
They are on your sheet for the case, on the very front bottom.
Very front bottom. Okay.
It'd be an orange stripe with recommendations, and those are the recommendations that the city is asking for them that will be part of the motion. All those things need to be done, and then the city will be happy. Any other questions of staff or Mr. Palomino before we move on to the public?
One final question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The detailing business is challenging, to say the least, with all of the requirements in terms of trapping oil and spillage and the likes of that, and runoff water. Have we, as a matter of history, Mr. Palomino has been in compliance with all related matters in his operations presently?
I'm sorry, I don't know that I can answer that question. We do have Caitlin Dix, who is with Water Pollution Control, who might be able to help us with that. Caitlin, do you have any comments on that? If you could unmute yourself and answer.
I was not necessarily prepared to speak on this case, but as far as I know that this business is in compliance, I do not believe that we've ever completed an inspection for the sanitary sewer or stormwater violations, but we did a drive-by to make staff comments and did not see any violations in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more thing to add. He has, my name's Todd Reckman.
Yeah.
He has a detail shop with vehicles currently there, and approved or not approved, the vehicles will still be there. And from his standpoint, if someone wants to buy one, that's all he's after. He's not trying to run a 50 car a month car lot or 100 cars. He just wants the accessibility to make extra money, continue growing. That's all I got.
I understand. That makes sense. Thank you. Okay. If there are no more questions, then I am going to ask if there's anyone in attendance who would like to speak for this case. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak against this case? Staff, do we have anyone?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Not
And
that I'm
here-
aware also.
Okay. Thank you. Hearing none, I'm closing this portion of the procedure. And commissioners, any other thoughts, comments, or I would entertain a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
hearing no comments in the matter of case number 21-200-06, special use permit, I move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Nesbitt, second. All right, staff, we're ready for roll.
I just want to clarify that that was with conditions.
I am so sorry. With the stipulated conditions.
Thank you.
Second again.
And we're ready for the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. Congratulations. We wish you well. And I 100% agree with Commissioner Young's comments that the friendship means a lot, and it sets a lot of character and the way you do business. So thank you and best of luck. And now that I know you're there, I have a messy car. Bring me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Let me close that out. Case 21-200-06, special use permit. Julio Palomino has been approved. Okay. Next case is case 21-400-11. Carol Kessler seeks home building permit of approval to operate an e-commerce resale business at 1320 South Lee Summit Road. Staff, we're ready for a report.
Yes, Carol Kessler seeks a home business permit approval to operate an e-commerce resale business at 1320 South Lee Summit Road. The site is on the west side of Lee Summit Road, a block or so south of Truman Road. Hang on just a minute. Okay, this is the surrounding zonings for the area. You can see all this area is pretty much zoned R12, which is two-family residential. On the right side of your screen is a lighter yellow color. That is R6, which is single-family residential. And just north of that is a little piece of apartment zoning you see in the dark brown. This is the comprehensive plan, recommends residential established neighborhoods for this area. And this is the aerial photograph of the site. Shows the property in the red circle. The applicant's building, the garage is in the back part of the site. It is in the little box with the X on it. You can see the applicant's property is accessed by a single drive from Lee Summit Road. This is the front of the house. We're looking west from Lee Summit Road. This photo shows the house on the right and the garage on the left off in the distance there, and then the driveway that connects both buildings to Lee Summit Road. This is the front and the side of the garage with the connecting driveway. This is another picture of the garage with the trailer that I think they use in the business. This is a small parking area across the drive area, I guess you call it, from the garage itself. This is the house that's on across Lee Summit Road from the applicant's property. And that's the applicant's mailbox there in the lower left of the slide. This is another house on the east side of Lee Summit Road across from the applicant's property to the southeast slightly. This is the house that's directly south of the applicant's property. Here we're looking down Lee Summit Road. That's the applicant's driveway and mailbox there on the right side. And here we're looking up Lee Summit Road. Truman Road is off in the distance, and there's the applicant's house on the left. Staff does recommend approval of this home business. The business shall operate only between the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Should maintain all required state and city licenses and comply with all city code standards and requirements.
Thank you. I would applicant like to come forward and tell us anything you would like.
Madam Chair, before we proceed with the applicant, a quick question to staff. Is this considered a minor home business or a major home business?
No, this is a major home business. A minor home business wouldn't be before you. They also can have outside employees or any signs of the business at all visible from the road. So this is definitely a major home business.
Thank you. I'll come.
Any other questions of staff before we proceed? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Preston. Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward? Please state, if you're both going to speak, please state your names and your address.
Carol Kessler, 1320 South Lee Summit Road, Independence, Missouri.
Thank you.
I would like to clarify the trailer is a handyman that is doing some painting. So that is not ours. But we would like to run the business from the garage, from the back building. And all of our employees, basically what they do is they prep items to be shipped out. UPS picks up in the afternoon and we ship everything to Amazon. We do not have customers that come to the residence. Everything gets shipped to Amazon.
Richard Kessler, 1320 South Lee Summit Road. I am her son. We've been running this business for 11 years now. Just moved to Independence. One addition that we made was we added a fence so that our parking lot was more secluded from the road and you would not be able to see those vehicles. That's all.
Thank you.
We wanted to make it prettier to keep up the appearance. So we didn't like that all the vehicles was being shown.
Thank you. So maybe just explain a little bit about, so you're basically an in and out business because you're only selling on the internet, correctly? So
correct.
Basically in and out.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I would, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would just like to clarify. So they were operating under in a different area or a different address previously, and now they are trying to move into this garage, or are they functioning and working out of this garage already?
We moved in a few weeks ago, and we are running it out of the business right now because our lease was up downtown, but it was after we had already applied for this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
This is a question to staff. the number of employees, perhaps maybe I should ask that question to the applicant. How many employees are operating at the site?
According to the rules, it's 5. I don't know how, if we can have more than that, if that's possible. 2 of our employees work remotely. They do not work here. All they do is drop some stuff off and leave. They're here maybe 15 minutes in the afternoons when they drop things off. So I didn't know if they count or don't count as an, because they're not on site.
Staff, can you clarify that for us and the
Yes,
counselors?
the code says that the planning commission has the authority to allow the business to employ 1 additional person living off the property for every acre of land. As the applicant's property contains a little over 3 acres, the business may employ up to 3 off-site individuals only. This would be in addition to any one living on the premises who works in the business. So they have 2 that live on the premises that work there, and then they can have 3 off-site. The code doesn't mention part-time or full-time or anything. It just says employees.
But still a total of 5, is that what I'm hearing?
That would be that they could have another person that lives in the house, work in the business, but they can't have more than 3 people who do not live on the premises work in the business with the amount of land that they have.
Okay. Commissioner Nesbitt, did you have a question?
I was going to ask staff about the parking, because I did notice they were parking on the grass on one of the pictures there. So, I mean, do they not have adequate parking?
We have adequate parking. The trailer was in the way for that person to pull in. And we actually had the handyman move it later so that they could park correctly.
Madam Chair, let's go back to the number of employees for a moment. I know in this application, the applicant discusses the number of employees. And for the moment, I have simply not been able to locate that. So I'll ask the applicant to review that portion for us, the number of employees. No, that is non-residential employees.
So 4.
Proceed, please.
I'm sorry. So we would like to seek to have 8 employees total, including ourselves.
Not counting yourselves, how many would you like to have that are non-residential?
6. 6, but we can operate with 4. 3 or 4, if that's what we have to do. I didn't know if there's a way to ask for the option to have additional employees. We have adequate parking. There's like 8 parking spots out there with a parking lot. And especially if it's like part-time people, if somebody only works in the morning, somebody else would be working in the afternoon. That kind of thing. So I didn't know if there's any way to get around that or not. If not, we'll operate under what you guys tell us.
Staff, would you, I know you stated that given the acreage, they could have 3 additional employees to what number?
Well, it's the number of employees that live on the premises, which are 2, but the husband could also work there, or if they had another child, they could work there. But as for someone not living on for the employees not living on the premises, they're limited to 1 per acre. So that's 3. Now,
So the
like
maximum number of non-resident employees would be 3.
that is correct, based upon little over 3 acres of property.
Right. And what discretion is there that this commission would have or otherwise?
Well, this is a part of the code. That's what it says. So the commission does not really have the discretion to change that number. We do have conditions that relate to other things that are, pave a parking lot or something like that, that can be conditions that are not in the code as such, but are conditions of approval. This is in the code. So the planning commission really doesn't have any authority to waive it or increase the number.
Thank you.
Can I ask?
Therefore, what we're saying here is there is no restrictions on the number of resident employees. However, there is a restriction and a limit to only 3 non-resident employees.
That's right.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? What about if we have, like right now, we have 2 employees that do not work here. They don't work here. They work remotely.
Well, like I said before, there's nothing in the code that says anything about remote employees or part-time employees. It just says employees. So we always took that to mean if you're an employee, you're an employee, part-time, on premise or off premise.
Madam Chair, I'm going to ask council for clarification on that particular point.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
And the clarification is, do we actually should count an employee who's working remote living in California in the employee count that's non-residential?
But she said that this employee does come to the premises.
I would concur that if the employee visits the site, that employee has to count. But if an employee is working remote in the state of California, living in California, but working remote for this particular subject site, I yield back to the council.
All right. Yes, sir. So the way, and I apologize, I was just trying to pull up the part of the code that addresses this. And the way the code reads is it states that only 1 person living outside the dwelling unit and members of the immediate family thereby residing may be engaged in the operation of a home business at any one time on the premises. Then there is an exception, however, to allow 1 additional person living outside the dwelling unit for every acre of land the dwelling unit sits on to be engaged in the operation of a home business at any one time. So the way the wording is, the way this is written, I interpret that as if they're living, outside, so they live somewhere else, then that's considered what I will say an outside employee, and they're limited to 1 per acre.
Even if that employee is entirely remote and never set foot on the property.
It makes no distinction in the code about that. It just says if they live off the premise, but they're an employee.
Thank you, Councilor.
You're welcome.
Side note, that might be something we need to look in as we progress to lots of online businesses post-pandemic or just because it's the future. But that's not for us to work on, so we will go back. Are there any other questions of the applicant or the city?
Yes, so Madam Chair, with these questions on employees, the applicant stated that they would like 8, which is far off from the 5 that I think we're talking about with the 2 that live there, plus 1 per acre, which is 3. So we're talking 5 employees. And so I guess my question is 5 employees at this time of you trying to open up your business here sufficient?
We can operate under those guidelines. We just have to make adjustments.
Okay, thank you. It states in her letter, Commissioner Preston, it's on the second page of our packet, that they have 7 employees, but only 5 would be working on the premise at one time, 2 work remotely. And all employees will be part-time except 2 will be full-time. So that's where you read that. Okay, any other questions of city or staff before we close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, just for clarification, so part of what they're agreeing to is the remote person that comes there from time to time is counting as their 3, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Chairwoman McLean, we do have at least one speaker on this item, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
The law is the law, the regulation is the regulation. And I confess I am troubled by what appears to be an outdated set of standards in our code that I am simply troubled that here, this employer, this home-based business, as a result of our decision here today, not our decision, but as a result of code, 2 employees are going to be terminated. I'm troubled. I yield back.
City, did you want to respond to that?
Well, this was actually adopted probably, I don't recall right offhand, but 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And from what I remember, I was not involved in the actual creation of it, but the additional employees that didn't live on the site was more related to farm or really rural areas, businesses that were in really rural areas. I mean, this is not. The first thing of a home business is it's a home first and a business second. The applicants, seek to use the 5,000 square feet of the garage for their business, which is larger than the square feet of the house. That's kind of our perspective from that.
I concur fully with the language in the code as to preserving the character and the nature of a neighborhood. I think that was just very well written, and that a home-based business remains subordinate and secondary to the principal residential use of the property. Somehow, technology has advanced beyond our code, I believe, and perhaps one day we should revisit it. Just a matter of comment. I understand the code. I accept it. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, because we get another chance to have discussion amongst ourselves, but let's see if there's anyone on the call who would like to speak for this case.
Hello, Council, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Ronald R. Bentley. I'm at 1302 East Walnut Street. I back up to, it's Danny Wilson that used to own the property, and I have nothing against Rick. We've talked before, that owns the property now. He stopped by a few months ago, and I talked to him about what was going on over there, and they're adding on to it, making it bigger. You know what? I get it. but this is, it's still considered residential, and a 2 at that. I have lived here for 20 years, and I've seen that field behind my house, had options to buy it. And I've seen that place change in this whole neighborhood from the Section 8 down the street to the hospital down there for retirement community that I have ambulances driving up and down the road. That being said, I believe that he's running the business now, and you guys have talked about it. Does he have a permit now to do that? I don't believe so. That's why we're here talking about it. And I talked to Rick about it. He never mentioned that he was going to be doing this. I don't want the value to decrease any more on my property. And that being mentioned, my neighbors agree with it. I called them today, and they weren't able to sit in, a few of them. I just last minute. So that being said, I've had a truck stolen out of my driveway. The ex-wife, her car multiple times. This will attract theft. Their gateway is through my backyard. It will be seen. We've had a lot of problems with theft around here. You can look it up. It's just, I just don't see, let's say this house was $750,000, $760,000, close to $1 million, add-on was $1 million. If they're wanting to build a business and have that money, they could have done that on the outskirts of town. This is actually old farmland, and still the neighbors own 3 acres, and the neighbor over owns property. It's just going to get chopped up so bad into commercial. I mean, where do we stop at that? I mean, I've lost a decrease in value from the neighbor's house alone. It's $20,000, I'd imagine. It's crumbling to pieces. I've called in last year about it. Nobody's done nothing. Danny Wilson's done it. Nobody's done nothing. But then for somebody to move in and to make a profit margin, that leaves a simple man, me, out of just dealing with the eyesore and the problems that's going to come with it. I do not make a profit off of it. I understand about business. I work for Builders Steel, and I've worked for J.E. Dunn. I mean, I know how buildings are and what comes along with it. I really would like to know how this is going to turn out, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so just for clarification, you are not in support of this?
I'm not in support of it, and I'm sorry to my neighbors for it. But a business is business, but a home is a home, and this has been my home for 20 years. And it'll be problems for me and my neighbors. And who's to say they won't use it as a hub? There's plenty of land to do it. And they could be transporting in and out of that place, just like the guy brought up about California. You could just say you're out of state coming through, picking it up. They do delivery vans, and I've seen them on the weekends already running trucks. They say it or not. I've already seen it, and it's not just a 9 to 6 operation, I would imagine. I'm not here to hurt feelings. I'm just stating facts.
I think it's always good to hear all the way around an issue. So we appreciate your comments and observations. Ms. Kessler, do you have anything you'd like to respond back?
I do. We just moved in, so the trucks he's seeing on the weekends are personal. We're moving things in. We also buy from Amazon personally. And so FedEx and UPS do deliver to us personally. I mean, we had a Nebraska Furniture Mart truck come to deliver furniture, and we had a pool table delivered. Those are all personal items. It has nothing to do with the business. UPS and FedEx come once a day to pick up for the business. Everybody works inside that building. And I don't see how it, and I do not see how this is a beautiful piece of property. The building's beautiful. The house is beautiful. I don't understand how it can reduce anybody's property value. I think it's complete opposite, that we're taking very good care of it. We put up a fence just so that I didn't like seeing all the cars. And basically when I did that, we had people painting in there doing that. Dan Wilson is the person that we bought the property from.
Correct.
And he started adding on to this building back in, I don't know, May, I think. We bought the house like a month or a half later. And we just finished it off what he did. He got the permit to build it. We just finished the inside. And so we've had construction people there, and they have been working weekends and such to finish off the inside of it because it was half built.
I also believe the history of the building was used for a home business as well prior to this.
I can verify it wasn't. There was no concrete trucks or construction equipment ran out of this place. Hearing it off of Truman Road where his business is. And he just built another business across the street for his wife's real estate company.
When I applied for the business license and went to the city, they told me that it would have already had a business license at the property.
Well, probably he carries a business license.
City, can you respond to that?
It's possible that he could have had a minor home business, which is basically just an office at this location. I don't believe that he had any sort of major home business that would allow for, customers and employees and all that sort of thing here. I don't have that information right here in front of me, though.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to inquire of the neighboring neighbor to this applicant. What was his concerns again, and what was his perception as to how this was going to adversely impact him? I'd like to hear again.
Would you like me to repeat it, or Madam Chair?
If
Would
you
you
could
please?
read it and maybe in bullet points, like, are you concerned about the traffic? Are you concerned about, the things that you mentioned?
Traffic, it'll increase theft. Thieves are like wolves. This is just a start for them. The business will get bigger and it'll be pushed on further, I would imagine, or more buildings put onto the property. There's still about close to an acre in between. If you want to call a shed, it's a 3-car garage. It's actually 15-foot doors on each side with a street light out on it, facing the back of my yard that I can see. And they're gonna, obviously put more buildings in to hold more, boxes. I see it as it being that way. Construction's construction. You never stop building. That's.
Do you?
I hear you. Staff, can you comment to what restrictions there would be on any expansion of this major home-based business?
Well, the way the code is written right now, it does not limit the amount of area in an accessory building that you can use for a business. Previously, it did that, but when it was changed a few years ago, that restriction was taken out. And I believe that in the home business information that I sent you included the restrictions, and you see it says 25% of the total floor area of the dwelling unit may be used in conjunction with a home business, or one accessory structure such as a freestanding garage may be used for a home business. And the Planning Commission may approve that home business that exceeds 25% of the total floor area of the dwelling unit, given the minimum floor area for a single family detached house required is not used in conjunction with a home business, and that not more than one accessory structure in conjunction with a home business. So it's conceivable that the building could be enlarged. I don't view that as it limits the area of a freestanding garage to a certain amount, unlike it does for a house. And the city councilor can render her opinion on that as well.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? So
Okay.
that means that we cannot build another building, correct?
Yeah, it says not more than one accessory structure, but it doesn't say a particular building couldn't be enlarged.
Is there a square footage? So because it's an R12 primarily area, is there a restriction on the size of the building?
Yes, it's limited to a certain percentage of the rear yard area. I don't have the calculation on what that would be here. So I don't know if they're close to that or not.
Question to staff. In order to expand the existing accessory building, would not a permit be required?
That's right.
Would you grant a permit to expand a building, an accessory building, albeit a major home-based business, and if they acquire the other lot that's a 1-point-something acre? What is the likelihood of that permit to expand that building being granted?
Well, if it met the size limitations, and if the property, this other lot they're talking about, was added into this lot, replatted the property into a single parcel, if it met the requirements for size and setback and so forth, permit would be approved by zoning.
There's nothing in the code to restrict an accessory building for a major home-based building as an accessory building.
No, there's not.
Not in an R12 zone?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Just in any residential district, basically, single family or duplex or whatever.
I'm not sure that it matters, but we absolutely will not be adding onto this building. There's no space, like it backs up to the forest. We will not be adding, have no intentions of doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we purchased this house because we think it's beautiful. It already had the building that we needed. We've been running this business for 10 years. We knew the size and space that we needed. We have no intention at all of adding on to that building.
All right. Is there anyone else on this call that would like to speak against this case?
Madam Chair, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Well, if you do the rough figurements for the measurements, that's 7,000 square foot that can add on for holding boxes alone. I mean, that's turning into a pretty large business. They can build on to the other side of their driveway, backed up to my backyard, and be able to operate out of that two buildings, and they added on the extra to that building. I mean, they're already building on when they first bought the house. They know what they're doing. And I'm fortunate that I've been in construction. I don't know.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your comments.
I believe I read in the code that we can't add on, we can't use or build another building for a business. We can only use one building for the business, according to the codes that I read.
That's right.
So we don't plan on building another building because we can't do that. And we knew that.
Like I said, though, it doesn't have limits on the potential expansion of this building. It just says another building.
Okay, so they can expand the building. They may not build another building.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Young, before I,
Yeah, I would just like clarification. I mean, I'm not going to share my personal commentary. The property there, passing by it, is obviously incredible. But for clarification, I would just like to make sure that we understand that there are not employees out of that space currently, right?
I'm sorry, what?
That it's not a functioning business there already, right?
It has been for the last few weeks.
So I thought,
Because we
so-
had everybody move, we had our employees helping us move everything in.
right. So then in which case I am, maybe I'm confused. So I'm not sure if it's a functioning business already, what we're doing, because I think because it's tough, because I think the property is incredible and you just moved in, and the house is incredible, and you've stated that you purchased that house because you knew the space that was available in the back. And so I'm not trying to add my commentary to it, but I think some of this is maybe being done a little backwards, because if it's already a functioning business and you have employees there already, and you purchased the property in hopes that you'd be able to run your business in the back of it, then I'm not sure ultimately what we are discussing as a commission right now.
I had already applied for the business license, so I thought it was okay to have them help us move things in and get ready to get started.
Yeah, understood. But at the same time, I don't, if it's all moving forward, then I don't know what we're ultimately discussing. So I'll mute myself and kind of leave it at that.
thank you, Commissioner Young. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to speak against this case? Is there anyone on the call that would like to speak in support of this case? Hearing none, the public portion of this is closed. Commissioners, any thoughts, comments, observations, or questions of staff before we entertain a motion?
Madam, excuse me, Madam Chair, I did have an email from the applicant earlier today. She was asking about, on occasion, they work on the Saturdays. So I believe that, during the holiday season, I believe that she would like the condition changed where it would be Monday through Saturday and not just Monday through Friday. I'll let her elaborate on that, though.
Okay.
That only happens like twice a year. I was only, I was wanting to see if we could add that in for maybe 3 or 4 times during the entire year for that. It's not a daily, it's not a weekly thing that we work on Saturdays. That was just because we're going into Q4 and with shipping and all the shipping backups, that it helps sometimes to be able to get caught up on Saturday.
Yes, Counselor?
Madam Chair, thank you. This was brought to my attention, and I think it's a valid point, but going back to number of employees, one of the things as I'm rereading the language, what it states is that it allows for, additional persons living outside the dwelling unit. For every acre, there's one additional person that can be working there. It talks about can work at the business at any one time, not to exceed a total of 6 employees. So it appears, and that's the part I apologize, I kind of skipped over, was at any one time. So it looks like, now I don't know how staff can really regulate this, but I mean, I think the applicant had mentioned, you know, if she had a part-time person working in the morning and a part-time person working in the evening, but their schedules were so that there was never more than, I think we determined it would be, right now, she has 2 living on the premises, and then there would be 3 not living on the premises, although she has those part-time employees. And so, you know, again, if we could stagger it so that she never has more than 3 persons living, they're living outside the premises, working on the premises at one time, if that makes sense.
Counselor, are you saying working on the site? Well, correction, not to not use the word site. Working on the property at any given time. Is that what the language is?
So yeah, this is tough. So what the language says is it allows 1 additional person living outside of the dwelling unit for every acre of land the dwelling unit sits on to be engaged in the operation of a home business at any one time. Not to exceed a total of 6 employees that live outside the dwelling unit engaged in the operation of a home business at any one time on the premises.
And it says on the premises.
So basically, that would be like the example that I can think of as a restaurateur is I might have 25 employees, but on any given shift, I only have 6.
Right. And I think it goes back to, and you made a good point, Commissioner Preston, about, and so does staff. You know, again, we're talking about an accessory use of a piece of property, and not all properties have this much space. You know, some properties are, you know, you're in a neighborhood where you're very much close to your neighbors. And so, you know, I think the idea there was to allow some flexibility, but at the same time limit, you know, how many other people, how many outside people you have coming to the house to operate the business.
Thank you, Counselor. Question to staff. This is a business license that's granted on an annual basis. Is that correct?
That's right. It's reviewed initially, and then after it's approved, well, initially reviewed by staff, and in this case, the Planning Commission. And after it's approved, it is not reviewed again by staff or the Planning Commission. The license is renewed by the applicant every year, but not.
Or as long as the applicant so chooses.
That's correct. But after the initial review, it is not reviewed again by staff.
And how do we terminate a business that is an undesirable business?
Well, if we get a complaint that they are doing something wrong or not in compliance with the code, then
i.e., if let's say they acquire the other property, expand the building to, let's say, 7,000 or 8,000 square feet, which they could do if they acquire the other property. But the maximum number of employees that they may have, if I'm listening, said correct, Counselor, would be maybe 8. Is that right?
Right. I think the maximum that, according to this, is the maximum number of additional persons living outside, you know, the residence would be 6.
6. A total. So the maximum number of employees that this entity could ever have located at that site would be 6 plus 2 resident employees. Unless they move an outside person in to live at their house.
Right, right. I don't think there's a limit on the number of residents that could work for the business.
Okay.
The limit is only on the outside, people not living there.
I think the scale of this operation will be restricted by two factors. One, the size of the lot, of course, and secondly, the number of employees. You could, and I don't know if they're going to ever justify automating to a point that they would move 50,000 tons of shipment per day with 6 or 8 employees. So I think we have some boundaries that would restrict the scale of the operation intrinsically by the code existing as it is and the number of acreage possible.
That's right.
Thank
That's
you.
right. So they would, yes, they would be limited right now due to the acreage. They would be limited to 3 outside employees at any one time working for the business.
And the restriction is the hours of operation would be, I think, either 8 to 6 or 9 to 6, with the possible accommodation natural for a holiday season that would potentially be a Saturday. Is that right, staff?
Well, she requested, I don't know that there was any way that we could put limits on it to certain Saturdays of the year or certain, certain seasons. But I think it would have to be basically all or nothing on Saturday work.
We can restrict the hours of operation.
Yes, I don't see there's any reason why you couldn't. Those hours that are listed 9 to 6 is actually slightly more than the applicant requested in her letter. I just rounded it up and down to make it an even number.
Okay.
To me, this is just, I can't think of any different word than anomaly. It's a strange case because it is, this is a bad word to use in this situation because it is a beautiful home, but it's an unfortunate home built in the middle of R12 that has the potential and is now being used as a major home business and has the ability to even though it's restricted by home business codes, I can understand the neighbors' concerns, but there's not a whole lot we can do about it. And so this is almost one of those things that, we just need to point to zoning or staff and just say, this is something to look forward to in the future. But for this moment and this time, it seems like, it is a beautiful home built on a lot of property in the middle of R12 that wants
Madam
to do
Chair,
a major home business.
I yield to young Bryce Young.
Right.
I yield.
Anomaly is a good word because I think fundamentally it's being operated on and operated out of regardless of the decision that this commission makes. So.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I will rescind my earlier comments about the code. I think there's great wisdom in the code. I think in this instance, they appear to do what they're intended to do, and that's preserve the integrity of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a tough one because, the last thing you want to do is stymie entrepreneurship and home businesses because they are, a good part of a city, something that's an advantage for people to have so they don't have huge overhead. But it is a very weird situation. Any other comments or questions for the city before we entertain a motion? I did close the public hearing, did I not?
Yes.
Thank you. I kind of lost track. So I would entertain a motion, or if there's any other comments from Commissioner.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I propose this motion in the matter of case number 21-400-11, home business permit to operate a e-commerce resale business at 1320 South Lee Summit Road. I move for approval.
Is that with recommendations in our?
With the recommendations of staff and the fact that the business may operate Monday through Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Virginia. All right, staff, will you please call the vote? I don't know why we can't hear you. Nope. You're not muted.
I think he may be muted on his computer.
Hello?
That's
Madam Chair, perhaps you should call roll.
Can you hear? Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes.
Can you hear this?
Yes.
yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're back. Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
No.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 21-400-11, Carol, a home business permit to operate at 1320 South Lee Summit Road has been approved. So best of luck, and just hopefully you'll recognize that you do have neighbors and they are concerned. So maybe you can keep them in the loop just out of neighborliness, but good luck.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
before this applicant goes away, this was a vote of confidence, and that this applicant was sincere in her statements, and that she will remain a good neighbor and will add greatly to the community. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We plan on keeping the house beautiful, and I don't know if you noticed, we put out fall decorations. We are very concerned about our neighbors. We love having neighbors, and we will keep them in the loop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Case number 21-400-12, short-term rental, 905 West White Oak Street. Nancy Levitt, request approval of a home business permit for a short-time rental. Staff, will you give a report?
Yeah, this is, excuse me, this is case number 21-400-12, a short-term rental business applied for by Jaron and Nancy Levitt. This is the vicinity map here for the area near River and White Oak. So you can see it's in an area of R6. There's a little bit of R12 to the south. They appear to be single family homes. I'm not sure why it's R12, but this is all R6 uses around. And then there's, of course, that large R18 vacant land that lies at the northwest corner of Truman and River. So the comprehensive plan, of course, sees this area as a residential urban neighborhood, and the other neighboring properties nearby are seen as a residential established neighborhood as defined by our comprehensive plan. So here's the aerial photograph of the property here and the neighbors. And as you often are wondering where the closest existing short-term rental are sometimes, this is within about 2.5 blocks of, or I guess 2 blocks of the existing one on Union. That was one of our first that was approved. The property contains a 1,520 square foot 2-story home with a 2-car garage off the alleyway. Additionally, it has a large patio and deck area behind the house. As far as number of guests, the applicant's letter indicates that the home contains 4 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. A maximum of 8 adults is applicable due to the number of bedrooms. This business would be advertised on Airbnb and VRBO websites. As far as parking goes, there is room for parking 2 cars in the garage and 2 in the driveway and 2 on the street. As far as noise issues, what to do about the loud and unruly guests, the owners or the property manager state that they will not allow gatherings where the number of persons exceed the permitted occupancy. The owners and the property manager indicate they will be available to respond to any complaints within 30 minutes. Obviously, that would be most likely the property manager. The owner will provide outdoor cameras to provide security, and the applicants also will supply contact information to surrounding employee or neighbors. The property has been inspected by the fire inspector. It's passed the initial short-term rental fire and life safety inspection, and of course, maps will be for fire evacuation will be provided to the guests, and the applicant indicates that they will provide carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and child-proof electrical outlets. So, real quickly, I'll go through some of the pictures. So here's the floor plan of the house. And this is the house looking south from West White Oak. Let's see. So access, of course, is from the alley, and the driveways, of course, from the back, and that's where that garage is. This is looking down the street, one direction, and the other direction. So staff recommends approval of this home business, this short-term rental with the following conditions. Number 1, the short-term rental shall obtain a business license in accordance with the city code and comply with Article 3, Chapter 5 of the city code. The occupation license number shall be listed on all advertisements and online platforms. Number 2, the business must comply with all safety and other standards established by Section 14.420 of the city code. Number 3, the maximum occupancy for the premise is limited to 8 adults. 10 total, I suppose, if you had 2 kids as well. So that concludes the presentation. I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, you have any questions of staff? All right, hearing none, the applicant will unmute and introduce yourself and give your address.
Hi, I'm Nancy Levitt, and I live in Utah, 1996 West Ranch Road, Farmington, Utah, 84025.
Thank you. Tell us anything you'd like us to know about your project.
Okay, we're excited. We bought it back the end of July, and we went and furnished it and started the application process. We have not rented it as a short-term rental. My family's come out. I've come out a couple times. We are not in the position that we have to rent it all the time to be able to own it. So we'll be very restrictive, and on Airbnb you can see ratings of guests from prior times that they've stayed. So we won't accept something where the guests are like a low rating or a very new guest. You know, we'll try as best as we can to be selective. Shelley's also on the call today, and she's my property manager that lives there locally. She manages 20 rentals. This is her first short-term rental, but she manages 20 long-term rentals in Independence, and she's a no-nonsense kind of lady. So awesome to have on my team. And yeah, I think we're just excited. And she's read a couple books, you know, listened to them on audio about short-term rentals, as have I. And it's just kind of it's a fun project, and we hope. It's surprising to me because I've looked at lots of different markets, and when I ran across Independence, the different occupancy rates that they have for short-term rentals in the area, as well as seasonality, a bunch of different factors. Independence was given an A- rating, which compared to some other places I've looked that are very beach vacations and stuff like that, they were like a B+. And so I was surprised, honestly, to find that Independence was such a good place. We've enjoyed visiting there, and there's a lot of things that draw people there. So I'm obviously from Utah, and so I know a lot of neighbors who, you know, go for just to visit historical sites there. So kind of what feels like to me a little off the wall, but turning out to be quite a fun little project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, and I'm Shelley Meyer, and I live in Blue Springs. My address is 2505 Northwest London Drive. I do own several rental properties.
I think your sound is going in and out, Shelley.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you. Can you restate the address just in case it didn't record?
Okay, I'm at 2505 Northwest London Drive in Blue Springs.
Thank you.
Missouri.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying that I own several properties already in Independence, and I manage several. Like Nancy said, this is my first short-term rental, but we're learning, and this will be a very successful experience.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I just wish we had better audio. I missed probably 80% of her presentation, although the property owner came through quite well.
Question to staff: does this get inspected yearly or twice every 2 years?
Yearly. Yearly.
Okay.
Any other questions of either the staff or the applicants or the manager that is in town?
To staff, the license is issued for 1 year.
Yes.
And it is a conditional renewal.
Yes. Yes.
Is it automatically renewed, or is it an application process renewal?
It's an automatic renewal.
No matter how many complaints?
But I just meant that it's auto as far as renewal, but it can be reviewed again.
Thank you.
I know you showed us a picture of the short term that's on Union. I know this is always a concern of Commissioner Wiley, so I'll just ask it on her behalf also. But how many short term do we have kind of in this historic district? Do you know? We have several in Delaware, right?
I'm just trying to remember from what we've done. I think there was one on Delaware, right?
I think so.
And this one, and
the Union one.
It's White Oak one. Is there one on Farmer a little farther east? There's some other street. I think there's one somewhere else north of Truman Road, but I can't remember exactly where it was.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a good thing that you don't actually know exactly, because then it means you haven't heard any complaints on any of them. All right, any other questions? All right, is there anyone on the call who would like to speak in favor of this case? Is there anyone on the call who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, the public portion is closed. Commissioners, I will take any comments, any more questions of staff or a motion.
Madam Chair, a
Mr. President.
simple follow-up on your comment earlier. There was previously, early on in this process, a rather vigorous resistance to short-term rentals in the historic district. Apparently, the applicants and their operations in short-term rentals have had a positive impact in their neighborhood. And I'm simply trusting that this applicant will carry on the tradition, and that those that are living and happy about Independence Historic District will continue to be happy with the works of this commission.
I can tell you just as a personal note that living in the historic area, I haven't noticed any difference. And it is nice to have some of the homes that were previously not filled be filled. That is an advantage, and they're kept up so nice because of Airbnb, they kind of have to be, or VRBO, whichever they're a part of. That is a nice safety net, is to have them be a part of that organization that does raise that bar high and keeps it there, or you're out. So that seems to be an advantage.
That was a bit of a, thank you, Madam Chair. That was a bit of a challenge to the applicant for comment.
Okay, yeah, I think we plan on raising, meeting that bar and keeping the home very nice. We definitely don't want our home ruined either, so we'll take every measure we have to make sure there's no new, trouble to the neighbors. And the neighbors next door, right next door, her name is Barbara. She gave me her contact information and I gave her mine, and she's very kind and nice to us.
Thank you.
Any other discussion amongst commissioners or with staff? Or I would entertain a motion. And some of you can make a motion other than Commissioner Preston. Not that that's a bad thing, but he's not the only one who can make a motion.
I yield, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, he does a great job.
So be, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Preston.
In the matter of case number 21-400-12, short-term rental at 905 West White Oak Street to operate a short-term rental, I move for approval with the stipulations as cited by staff.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferguson. And city, we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case 21-400-12, short-term rental at 905 West White Oak has been approved. Best of luck and thank you for your investment in our neighborhoods.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next case is 20-175-08, UDO amend number 52, recommended trees and shrubs regulations. Staff, we're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Rick Arroyo. I'm the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. Tonight, I know we've kind of been going for a while here, so I'll try to make it quick, but tonight we have an ordinance related to our recommended trees and shrub ordinance. This really kind of started, the city staff has been spending quite a few months working on all our codes, specifically for things like engineering development and standards and specifications. And this is actually one of those. I won't take a lot of credit for it though. Caitlin Dix, who I think you met a little bit earlier, has spent many, many months and a lot of hours putting this together, going through, if you've looked at your packet, there's a lot of technical names, a lot of different types of tree and plant species, and going through all the different pluses and minuses as to how these things interact with our environment. It's really good sometimes to go through and look at these and find out, are there things that need to be updated? And we certainly did find that with this particular code. There's a lot of, as we move forward, we find out that there's a lot of tree species out there, some of which have created a lot of problems for things like infrastructure, not only for the city, but also for residents and business owners. And in terms of damage to their infrastructure, we find that there was quite a few species on our approved plant list that are considered invasive species now. One of the things that we really wanted to do was to take a really deep, hard look at every single one of those and determine whether or not they should be on our approved list. And I understand that when somebody does come in, this type of code actually applies for things like landscape requirements or any type of vegetation that's required. It's also something that we look at for stormwater mitigation and any of those types of projects that come before the city. So what this really is a approved plan list. So these plants would be something that we would accept, without really any issues with it. Doesn't mean that somebody can't come forward with something different that we can consider. Understand there's many, many, many plants out there and different types of variety and species. So we don't have an entire list of everything, but one of the big factors with this was not only kind of the economic portion of it. When you do have trees, for example, that have become, that are now more susceptible to different types of diseases and insects, that can become a problem. That can become a problem not only for city, but also for residents having to spend a lot of money to trim trees. And I'm sure any of you have ever had to trim a tree or cut one down. It's incredibly expensive. Also for commercial businesses, when they do have different types of invasive species, they spend a lot of time and money on weed and different types of insecticide. All of that eventually does have an impact on our environment. So one of the goals of this was to provide a code update that gets rid of a lot of those invasive species and problem types of plants, but then put that in with more Missouri native type of vegetation, and actually give not only residents but business owners and developers a really good list of available options that are here, available locally, cost effective. They're not anything outrageous. They're available. Some of them are available at maybe Home Depot or some of the local types of Lowe's stores, but then also they are available locally at many of our nurseries. May not be available year round, but because they are Missouri natives that we primarily recommended, that becomes a little bit better for them to be able to take that list and go from it. Just kind of go through some of these slides here. There we go. So this particular slide just kind of covers some of the changes when you look at the total volume of the number of plants, because one of the things we wanted to really look at was we didn't want to make a list, really small. We wanted to be able to actually provide a lot of options for people. And so when we take our code, there's a section in there that talks about recommended plants and trees under utility lines. And obviously that's for the purpose of not becoming problematic for those types of utilities. And then we just do have, we have a line here for recommended number of plants. And then we also show the prohibited streets. So understand that there's a lot of plants that we kind of had in our code that were somewhat problematic to right-of-way, utilities, water lines, sewer lines, sidewalks, and curbs. And as you know, that can be very expensive when you have roots that damage that type of infrastructure. So the orange colored line kind of shows you, we've increased the number of plant species recommended under utility lines, fairly significant for the total number of recommended plants. But we also did have a number of plants in our code currently that we feel shouldn't be in that particular, in the right of way. So when we take a look at some of the current plants that we had that were in the code that were non-Missouri natives, that invasive species, it's actually number 8. It's kind of hard to see on this slide, but we actually had 8 invasive species that are now considered by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources and Mid-America Regional Council. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but and then we do have 12 plants that were not recommended in our code, and we only had 12 Missouri natives and 24 others. As you can see, we have quite a few, pretty much all Missouri natives now recommended in this code proposal, and then 24 others. Kind of go to the next slide. And then as part of our code section that goes near utility lines, as you can kind of see, we had 9 invasive plants currently in our existing code, 15 that were no longer recommended, as well as 18 Missouri natives and 25 others. And then as you can see there, we've pretty much beefed up pretty much everything to be nearly all Missouri native types of plants that are available locally and fit with our soils here. And that's another big component of this, as well as some others. One of the other big goals in putting this together was a lot of these more Missouri natives. We have a lot of resources locally to give people. We have catalogs that kind of show what these species are, what types of, how these things are purchased, where some access to different nurseries where you can purchase them. Mid-America Regional Council has a lot of information on that, as well as the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And so another thing to point out here is that Caitlin has done a lot of work getting this ready. This has also been through the Department of Natural Resources as well as the Tree Commission here at the city. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. I will take any questions I can. If there are technical questions, I'm probably going to ask Caitlin to jump in and try to answer that for us. But with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you. I was reading through the list, and I don't profess to be a plant person, but There's a lot of things I didn't know, that's for sure. But I love a list, so this is fantastic. Commissioners, any questions? Oh, you guys are off the hook.
Well, I saw poison ivy on the list, but I don't know whether it's being not recommended, or what do you want to do with some poison ivy? It's V on.
I believe that
the prohibited list. Yeah.
actually in the prohibited list.
It is actually one of the only noxious weeds in the regulations for the City of Independence. That would be poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac. So you could say whether or not it needs to be in the code twice as prohibited. So
Does the city come out and collect it? I've got some. I would invite you to come get it.
it is considered noxious.
Okay.
So I believe you are supposed to remove it.
Okay, I'm trying to remove it right now. Would you consider coming and get it?
I'm sure Caitlin can probably give you some tips on how to get it removed. Covering yourself with poison ivy.
I can provide you with some technical resources and some guidance.
I will follow up with you.
Can you put that on Facebook so the rest of us can see that?
Yes, in fact, would you?
Fantastic information.
Because mine is inside of some thorny little bushes, and getting to it it's been a real challenge.
Absolutely, I will add that to some of the things that we would propose to run through Meg to put on Facebook. I think that sounds like a really wonderful idea.
But you won't come get it.
I will not come get it.
Okay.
Completely avoiding that. And we're not supposed to burn it, correct?
Do not burn it. You can, it'll aerosolize the urushiol, and you can actually inhale it and get it in your lungs. So no burning of the poison ivy, please.
Yeah, that's a very good public notice, because that would have been my first go-to, but yeah, our plant person was like, no. All right, any other questions or comments before I entertain? Wait, I need to open this up to the public, right?
Yeah.
Anyone on the call who would like to speak for this case? Is there anyone on the call who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, the public portion is closed. Commissioners, any comments, concerns, thoughts? Or I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
I have a comment about the trees that used to be around the square. I believe most of them have been taken away. What kind of trees were those that attracted many, many birds?
I believe those were pear trees.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if there are no further comment, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
In the matter of case number 20-175-08 UDO amendment number 52, recommended trees and shrub regulations change, move for approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
That was, I think Commissioner Ferguson won. Sorry, Commissioner Nesbitt. Next time. All right, case number 20-175-08 UDO amendment number 52 has passed. I think this is fantastic that you guys are looking in the corners of our ordinance.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I still need to take the vote.
Roll call.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Roll call.
Madam Chair, are you approving this?
Evidently I did.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. See, it was a crystal ball. All right, case number 20-175-08, UDO amendment number 52 has really passed. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, I appreciate what you're doing. I think that it's as a citizen, I don't think you ever really realize just how many things it does take and how important these things are to making a greater and a better place to be for a city. And so I think, to me, this is a big deal. I think that it's important. It gives builders something to look forward to, what they need to landscape with. It gives, even the square, as we look to getting trees, what kinds of trees would be best for our location and not have to guess. I hate that. I hate guessing. And, even homeowners, what would be best and what native, for somebody who didn't grow up in here and is not from Missouri, I want to plant native things. So I think this is fantastic. Thank you for the work. Okay. To the minutes. I'll give you all a minute to review the minutes. Does anyone have any changes? Hearing none. All of those, if you can turn your video on or unmute yourself. All those who approve of the minutes, say aye.
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 Thank you. The minutes are approved. Okay. To the round table, the next meeting is October 12th. It's been brought to my attention that there's been we've been looking at the rules and procedures for Planning Commission. I would like to have the city kind of relook at and consider amending the layout of the agenda and rearrange it and allow you to have the ability to rearrange it for efficiency for both you, us, I guess all three, you, us, and the applicants and the public time. So if you could consider those things. And then I think there's a couple of other things that probably need to be looked at that would help you officiate these meetings a little bit better.
Yeah, Madam Chair, staff will absolutely go back and bring some proposed changes forward if it's agreeable to the commission for your review, and we can kind of go from there at a later date.
Okay, that would be great. Because that way you would have the ability to move UDOs to the back and we wouldn't have to go through this. We'd still have the ability to rearrange it, or the chairman would, but this way you can already do it. Okay, then the next thing is we have been talking to Jordan about providing training for commissioners. I had the benefit of having a 2-hour training with the then city attorney, Dela, and I found it very beneficial. And I didn't realize that had not been an ongoing situation. And so I think that it would be very helpful. I certainly could use some retraining, clearly, what I just did. So I just think even a yearly training would be just a great thing to have. And so they have, with our new council partners, been talking about how to do it. And so what I would like to do, if it's okay, is have the city and the councilors decide on a first Thursday that would work best for them and propose a date for us for our first training, preferably sooner than later. That way, if it's a first Thursday, it doesn't interfere with other commissions, I don't believe. And so if we could do that and then come back to us with that date, I think that would be great. But again, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So, and just to be clear, that would be as a special session or a special meeting of the planning commission that we will notice and, you know, do all those normal good things that we would do. So yeah, staff will get with city councilors and we will get something worked up for you.
Okay, I like that better than doing it after a commission meeting. I think we're all tired and it would be nice to have a fresh moment.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it would be wonderful if the Learned Council would frame these training modules in such a way that they might be similar to what the what takes place with the I'm having a moment here, poll workers. Those modules are put online and or available for all new people immediately, or they may be put in such a way that they would be accessible review for, as you stated earlier. But I would love to see these modules, these training modules, put so that they can be used repeatedly, and we don't have to redo the whole thing unless, of course, a module needs to be changed because of regulations, etc. Thank you.
Great.
Your point's well taken. So see what we can do.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions or anything. City, do you have anything for us?
I don't have anything unless anyone else. If Rick has anything, I think that's all for staff.
Okay.
A point of order, Madam Chair. The Learned Council this evening, it's not often I want to applaud the attorneys, but once again, excellent representation and presentations throughout. I just want to personally say thank you for the good work.
Thank you. It's nice to work with a professional group. Believe me, I work with some small cities and sometimes it's very difficult, but you guys make it a little bit easier for me to do my job. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's really nice to have the extra expertise in the room. It's really been a nice addition. Commissioners, anything for the greater good? Okay.